Malcolm X looks out the window of his apartment in 1964, holding a rifle in a gesture of vigilance and self-defense. In Bao Tre, Vietnam, American soldiers take cover in a muddy canal to escape intense Viet Cong gunfire. The scene was recorded in March 1966 during patrol operations in the Vietnam War. Ava Gardner and her first husband, Mickey Rooney, are photographed together during the 1940s in the United States. The couple was married for a short time, a union that received significant media attention at the time. In a psychiatric hospital in the United States, a patient is photographed 10 days after undergoing a lobotomy performed by Dr. Walter Freeman. Workers work on constructing the Panama Canal locks in 1912 during one of the most complex phases of the project. The locks would allow control of water levels for safe ship passage between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Physicist Harold Agnew, a member of the Manhattan Project, holds the plutonium core that would be used in the Fat Man device in 1945. That weapon was dropped on the city of Nagasaki, Japan, during the final moments of World War II. Cetshwayo, king of the Zulu, led his forces to victory against the British at the Battle of Isandlwana in 1879, in what is now South Africa. This confrontation marked one of the greatest defeats of the British Empire by African troops on open ground. Ernest Shackleton's crew spots the rescue ship approaching Elephant Island in 1916 after months stranded in the ice. The rescue ended one of the most dramatic journeys in polar exploration, marked by courage and resilience. The first recorded photo of Reactor 4 at the Chernobyl plant after the accident on April 26, 1986, in Soviet Ukraine. The image was taken by a technician and shows the visible damage to the structure immediately after the explosion. Jane Mansfield walks the streets of New York alongside her daughter, Jane Marie, in 1953. Early in her career, Mansfield already drew attention for her striking presence and style. Young apprentices attend a geisha school in Tokyo, Japan, in 1951 during the post-war period. These institutions trained women in traditional Japanese arts such as dance, music, and etiquette. In Petrograd, Russia, in May 1917, an all-women battalion marches through the streets during the Russian Revolution. United States troops land in Grenada during Operation Urgent Fury in 1983 in the Caribbean. The operation aimed to restore political order after a military coup, with support from neighboring countries. The toppled head of a Joseph Stalin statue lies in the streets of Budapest during the 1956 Hungarian Revolution. This popular uprising against the Soviet-backed regime marked one of the most symbolic moments of resistance to external control. Single, unemployed women march in 1933 to demand job opportunities during the Great Depression in the United States. With unemployment high, many women struggled to support themselves without institutional assistance. In 1949, the United States, along with the United Kingdom, France, Canada, Belgium, Norway, Denmark, Iceland, Italy, Luxembourg, Portugal, and the Netherlands, signed the treaty that created the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. In Prague, then part of Czechoslovakia, residents gather on a street as they throw Molotov cocktails at a Soviet armored vehicle. The action took place during protests against the invasion by Warsaw Pact troops on August 21, 1968. Dolph Lundgren is photographed in 1985 during the filming of Rocky IV, in which he played the Soviet boxer Ivan Drago. The character became one of the most iconic antagonists of the franchise, marking Lundgren's film debut. The Guardian Angels patrol the New York subways during the 1980s, wearing red berets and white t-shirts as their uniform. Adrian Carton de Wiart, photographed in 1943, survived 3 wars and 2 plane crashes over the course of his military career. On an Antarctic expedition, explorer Harold Hamilton poses beside an elephant seal skeleton at McMurdo Sound in 1912, documenting polar wildlife study. The elephant seal, a marine mammal, can weigh up to 800 pounds. At a migrant camp in Arizona, United States, a family poses in front of a sign reading, "Today, be grateful," while waiting for new job opportunities in 1940. In Berlin, Germany, in 1945, after the end of World War II, residents wash clothes in the street using water from an improvised hydrant. This practice reflects the scarcity of basic services and lack of access to laundries during the city's occupation and reconstruction. Charlie Chaplin walks in front of Federal Hall on Wall Street in New York in 1918 during a visit to the United States. Known worldwide for his silent films, he also took part in public campaigns during World War I. Meryl Streep, during her high school years, dressed as a cheerleader on a school sports field. Before becoming one of the most awarded actresses in film, she already showed charisma and a strong presence. Lydia Litviak, known as the White Lily of Stalingrad, poses on the wing of her Yak-1B fighter around 1942. She was one of the first female combat pilots of the Soviet Union and stood out for her skill in aerial missions. Female workers take a lunch break at the Bethlehem Fairfield shipyards in Baltimore, Maryland in 1943. The site was an important shipbuilding center during World War II, with significant female participation. A girl works in a cotton mill in 1908 during a time when child labor was common in industrial sectors. Long hours and harsh conditions were part of the reality for many children during the Industrial Revolution. Columns of Studebaker, Ford, and Chevrolet trucks supplied by the United States to the Soviet Union drive through Moscow in 1944. The vehicles were part of the aid program known as Lend-Lease during World War II. In an emperor penguin colony on the Antarctic Peninsula, photographed in 1912 during a scientific expedition. The birds face strong winds and temperatures below 4 degrees Fahrenheit, grouping together to conserve heat. A driver poses next to his freight truck in an unknown location, showing the expansion of road transport in the early 20th century. On a wooden railroad bridge in rural United States, a track inspector uses a hand car with iron wheels to check the condition of the rails, accompanied by his faithful dog, who helps warn of dangers and provides companionship. Rita Hayworth is photographed at Ciro's Club in Hollywood in the late 1930s, during the early years of her rise to stardom. The venue was one of the most glamorous hotspots of nightlife among celebrities of the golden age of cinema. The Hollywoodland sign is seen on Mount Lee, with the San Fernando Valley in the background in 1920 on the outskirts of Los Angeles. Originally installed as a real estate advertising campaign, the sign would become a symbol of the film industry. In London, United Kingdom, the narrowest shop measured 6 feet long, 7 feet high, and 2 feet deep. Rented by a shoemaker for £23 per week, it operated on a busy sidewalk in the commercial district. In Nemi, Italy, archaeologists recover one of the ships built by Caligula on Lake Nemi, which sank nearly 2,000 years earlier. The 1932 archaeological salvage used pioneering diving and ancient vessel recovery techniques. The Landlord's Game was created by Elizabeth McGee in 1904, 31 years before the official launch of Monopoly. The original board was developed as a critique of property accumulation and economic inequalities. In an aircraft workshop in Farnborough, England, Royal Air Force Women's Auxiliary Air Force mechanics inspect and adjust components of an Avro biplane. In London, United Kingdom, children work in a tea factory, packing dried leaves for distribution in 1921. In London, United Kingdom, a couple is photographed exchanging a kiss on the sidewalk while the man holds a cookie in his mouth. The scene was captured in 1933 by a photojournalist documenting urban life and everyday details. In Hollywood, California, United States, comedian Groucho Marx poses next to a child wearing a mask that mimics his signature mustache and arched eyebrows. A worker is helped out of a 15-inch BL cannon after finishing the cleaning of its rifling at Coventry Ordnance Works in England in 1914. During World War I, women played essential roles in the British war industry. Buenos Aires, Argentina, 1969. The entrance of a subway station is captured amid the urban movement of the capital. The Buenos Aires subway, the oldest in Latin America, was already an important mode of transportation for the population. Neil Armstrong wears a helmet and spacesuit moments before the Gemini mission in 1966 in the United States. This phase was fundamental for the tests that preceded the crewed moon landings years later. President Lyndon Johnson signs the Civil Rights Act in a historic ceremony held in 1964 in the United States. The legislation marked a significant step forward in the fight against racial discrimination and guaranteed equal rights under the law. Lyndon B. Johnson yells for pilots to shut off the plane's engines, allowing John F. Kennedy to give his speech in Texas in 1960. The event took place during the presidential campaign that led Kennedy to the White House, with Johnson as his running mate. Aboard Air Force One, President George W. Bush returns to Washington after the September 11, 2001 attacks. A nose-shaping device used in 1944 was designed to permanently adjust the user's nasal structure. According to The Atlantic magazine, the device was used by people seeking to change their appearance without surgery. Beth Pitt strolls with her pet doe named Star Message in the heart of New York City on November 16, 1942. The unusual sight drew attention in the city streets during World War II. American model and actress Anita Colby poses with mannequins resembling her during a 1954 photo shoot. The scene was designed to highlight her iconic image widely used in fashion and advertising campaigns of the time. A tank crew in Europe improvises umbrellas to shield themselves from rain during military exercises in the 1940s. A Chinese worker walks with a sign pinned to his back stating he is Chinese, not Japanese, in the United States during the 1940s. This gesture aimed to avoid hostility amid tensions generated by World War II in the Pacific. A street musician plays a barrel organ on the busy sidewalks of the Lower East Side in New York, United States, around 1910. These performers were part of daily life in immigrant neighborhoods, offering simple tunes that attracted passers-by and curious children. Women attend a Tupperware party in Sarasota, Florida, in 1958, gathered in a relaxed home setting. In British biplanes over the Western Front in Europe, crew members manually drop explosives through open cargo doors of the fuselage. Men pose inside a 49.6-ton steel pipe section, part of the internal structures of Hoover Dam in 1935. These pipes would be used to channel large volumes of water through the dam's hydroelectric system. A railroad trestle at the Bingham Mine in the United States in 1914 carries ore and materials through the excavated cliffs. The mine, located in Utah, was one of the largest copper extraction operations in the world at the time. Workers dismantle the clock that was on the facade of the Daily Telegraph headquarters in London in 1930. In 1964, a young man drinks water from a drinking fountain labeled "Whites Only" in the United States. This type of segregation was common in public spaces during the era of racial segregation laws. Xi Jinping, still a child, appears in front, second from the left, alongside his family in Beijing during the 1950s. At the time, his father, Xi Zhongxun, already held important positions in the government of the People's Republic of China. In a residential backyard in the United States, around 1895, two children play with a handcrafted toy horse mounted on iron wheels and a wooden frame. Tourists visit the crown of the Statue of Liberty in New York in 1947, enjoying the view of the city from the top of the monument. The site has been one of the most symbolic tourist attractions in the United States since its 19th century inauguration. Couples dance along the bank of the Seine River, under the bridges of Paris, in a spontaneous moment of joy and togetherness. Actress and violinist Jane Mansfield is photographed in a Las Vegas, Nevada supermarket in 1959. Known for her multifaceted talent and striking presence, she also attracted attention in everyday moments. In a trench on the Western European theater of operations, soldiers cope with crossfire during World War II. Sergeant Chuck Beatty survived 16 bullets fired by a German machine gun, striking his abdomen, side, arm, and shoulder. In 1933, Albert Einstein is photographed alongside his son, Hans Albert Einstein, and his grandson, Bernhard Caesar Einstein. In a rural park near Topeka, Kansas, United States, a girl chases soap bubbles across a grassy field, capturing a moment of pure joy at the start of the post-World War II baby boom. Thursday, April 10, 1947, The assembly line at a Ford factory stops in tribute to Henry Ford's funeral. Leeds United player Jack Charlton smokes a cigarette during a training session in August 1970 in England. Although the habit was common among athletes at the time, the scene contrasts with current health standards in sports. A woman uses a portable micro television invented by Sony on the back of her car in 1963. This model represented a technological breakthrough, allowing mobile access to TV broadcasts for the first time. A young French girl kisses an American soldier on Valentine's Day, February 14, 1945. The gesture took place during the final months of World War II in a recently liberated town. A smiling family takes home their borrowed books from the Cincinnati Public Library's bookmobile in 1940. The mobile service brought literature and knowledge to communities with limited access to fixed libraries. A couple walks through the streets of a village in Sicily, Italy, followed by family and neighbors during a traditional wedding in the 1960s. In Lincoln, Vermont, United States, in 1940, the owner of the C.A. Donahue grocery store poses at the entrance of his corner shop, a gathering place for the local community. Robert Downey Jr. had his mugshot taken when he was transferred to the Chemical Dependency Treatment Unit and California State Prison in Corcoran, United States. A first-class sleeping car on a train in 1929, featuring private compartments and elegant decor to provide comfort for passengers. Chippendales nightclub opens in Los Angeles in 1979 as the first club to feature male dancers in choreographed performances for a female audience. The first house built in Dodge City, Kansas, was erected in 1872 during the early expansion to the American West. The city would become one of the most emblematic centers of the frontier, associated with cowboys and cattle trails. The Karman factory in Osnabrück, Germany, is photographed in full operation in 1969, with assembly lines running at a fast pace. In Langtry, Texas, United States, Judge Roy Bean's notary office and saloon functioned as both a registry office and bar in the late 19th century. In an unidentified location, possibly in rural England, a 6-seat bicycle races alongside a steam train on parallel tracks. In a home kitchen in the United States, a woman heats water in a pot on the stove to boil cloth diapers while a baby watches from a high chair. In a royal armory in Krakow, Poland, a suit of armor made up of 1,074 articulated steel plates protected knights in Renaissance-era combat. In an anthropological laboratory in the United States, a researcher displays a tray with 6 human skulls collected during field expeditions. Steven Spielberg, on the set of the film E.T., The Extraterrestrial in 1983, beside actor Harrison Ford and screenwriter Melissa Matheson, who later became Ford's wife. Although the scene with Ford was cut from the film, he visited the set during filming. In Seoul, Korea, a Yangban-class aristocrat is carried in a litter by bearers. Michelle Phillips, member of the group The Mamas and the Papas, is photographed in 1966 during the peak of the band's success. A special mask used in 1937 to conceal facial expressions during poker games, preventing opponents from reading reactions. In a high school classroom in the United States, students learn to type. They use mechanical typewriters arranged in rows to develop professional skills. In an underground mine in the Nord-Pas-de-Calais region of France, horses pull ore carts through narrow tunnels. A gentleman stands out in a formal portrait at a photography studio in London, England. The photograph, taken around 1880, highlights the use of a tailcoat, top hat, and cane, symbols of prestige during the Victorian era. On a traveling circus stage in the United States, Ella Williams, known as Madame Aboma, showcased her height of 6 feet 10 inches as the main attraction. At Boston City Hospital in Boston, Massachusetts, United States, doctors and nurses work in a state-of-the-art operating theater for its time. In a film studio in the United States, filmmakers produced a silent and slightly unsettling version of a fantasy tale around 1910. In a large open field in California, United States, people gathered to bid on land lots. The event took place in 1904, when the state was experiencing rapid growth and attracting settlers seeking new opportunities.